My name is Destiny Torres, and I'll be giving a presentation on ancient Roman defense. Some of the contents in this presentation are the location of Rome, who defended Rome, the Roman army, Roman enemies, battle tactics and formations, weapons, armor, and finally, a conclusion. Let's start off with, first, where is Rome located? Rome is in Italy, which is on the continent of Europe. Now let's jump into who defended Rome. The Roman army, of course. The Roman army was the armed forces deployed by the Romans throughout the duration of ancient Rome, from the Roman kingdom to the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. This army was known as the Roman Legion. The army was organized in a very simple way. 5,000 legionaries would form a legion. The legion would then be split into what was called centuries, which consisted of 80 men. These 80 men were controlled by a centurion. The centuries would then be divided into smaller groups with different jobs to perform. The Roman army consisted of the general. The general was appointed by the Roman emperor. He was often a senator rather than a career soldier and relied on his senior centurions for advice. The senior tribune was second in command. 5 junior tribunes were responsible for the legionaries' welfare and daily routine. The centurion was a tough, experienced soldier. The centurions were really the backbone of the army. The century aptio was appointed by the centurion to take command if the centurion fell in battle. And finally, a legionary was always a Roman citizen. Legionaries enlisted for 20 years. Legionaries were also known as foot soldiers. Who did the Roman legionaries fight? The ancient Romans fought many battles and wars in order to expand and protect their empire. There were also civil wars where Romans fought Romans in order to gain power. Some of the major battles were the 3 Punic Wars. This is where Rome fought Carthage. Carthage is a large city in the coast of North Africa. These wars lasted more than 100 years. Then there was the Battle of Cynocephali, where Alexander the Great was defeated and Rome became the dominant world. The next battle would be the Third Servile War, where gladiators escaped and started a rebellion with their leader, Spartacus, but Spartacus was defeated. Another war was Caesar's Civil War, also known as the Great Roman Civil War, a 4-year-long war where Julius Caesar defeated Pompey and became the dictator of Rome. And last but not least, the Battle of Actium, where Roman general Mark Antony and Cleopatra were defeated. Rome gained its first emperor, Caesar Augustus. And of course, if the Roman legionaries are going to fight, they're going to need battle tactics and formation. The most used formation were the triple line, the testudo, and the wedge. The triple line was named the maniple. It consisted of 3 different lines. The first line was named the hastati, which is the first line right here. It consisted of frontliners with the least experienced. The second line was known as the principals. This consisted of older men with a little bit more experience. And the third line was named triarii, which is this line right here in the back. The triarii consisted of the oldest and most experienced soldiers. Maniple was one of the most innovative formations used on the battlefield. Next battle tactic we have is the testudo. Testudo is also Latin for turtle or tortoise. Testudo, although a slow-moving formation, was effective in the Roman battlefield. It consisted of a shield wall formed by the army of men, providing a 360-degree wall of protection. The frontliners had to kneel behind their interlocked shields, and the second line would have to hold the shield high above their head. This was mostly used as a defensive form rather than an attack. The formation would protect the foot soldiers on the inside from the attacks of missiles and archers, along with other weapons that were coming through. Though this formation was effective, it wasn't easy to form, requiring a highly skilled workforce and sense of synchronization. This strategy worked in favor of Romans during their battle, as it was strong and a very tight formation. The soldiers within this formation would hardly get hurt. Also, the positioning of the shield kept no gaps for any bows or muscles to enter during the sieges. And the last battle tactic was the wedge. It was commonly known as the flying wedge or the flying V. Soldiers were placed tightly together in a triangular formation, hence the flying V or the wedge. They would move together forward in a cluster towards the enemy. The center point of the wedge was known as the edge and consisted of the best men, both by experience and skills. These held shields and their weapons. All of their weapons. This was an aggressive formation that could crack open the enemy formation. So basically, when they were coming through with the wedge was like this. If they had a line of men, the wedge would come through that line and push them all apart. Now that we have all these battle formations, of course, if you're going to go to battle, you're going to have some kind of weapon. So what were the most popular weapons used by the ancient Roman legion? These weapons were known as the gladius and the spatha. The most important weapon was the gladius, or short sword. The gladius was around 18 inches long, sharpened on both sides, and was made of steel. This weapon was often used for close combat. It was later replaced by the spatha, a longer sword between 24 and 33 inches long. Other weapons that were used besides swords were spears. They were like javelin types. These types were known as the verutum, the pilum, the hasta, and the speculum. In this picture here, this legion foot soldier is holding a pilum. They were throwing lances. So you could take it like you were holding a javelin and you could throw it. Or you could walk up to your soldier, your enemy that you were fighting, and give him a stab. So the verutum was smaller than the pilum. Its shaft was only about 1 meter long, which was half the length of the pilum shaft. The verutum was eventually discarded and replaced by the pilum. The pilum was approximately 7 feet long. It had an iron spike towards the end of a long wooden shaft and weighed about 4.4 pounds. It was then later replaced by the hasta. The hasta was then replaced by the speculum. And why did they replace it? Because it was shorter. I couldn't imagine carrying around a 7-foot spear while I'm in battle. Another weapon that the soldiers carried on them at all times was known as the pugio. The pugio was another small knife, about 7 to 11 inches long. This weapon was used as a last resort weapon if no other weapons were available. This was often associated with high-ranking officers. This weapon also famously killed Julius Caesar. Other weapons they used was known as a plumbata. A plumbata was more of a dart. This was carried by every soldier. The soldiers carried 5 of them in the hollow of his shield. So inside the shield, there would be a space for the plumbata. Now, besides having handheld weapons, the Roman soldiers also used bigger weapons, which took quite a few soldiers to operate. For example, the ballista and the onager. These were nothing but ranged weapons, which served the purpose of throwing large explosives and fireballs with maximum accuracy at distantly set targets. These complex weapons also ensured that the damage caused to the opponent was huge. Now, I found these quite interesting because the ballista is more like a giant bow, giant crossbow, and the onager was a catapult. So if the Roman legion also had weapons, they also needed armor and other equipment. This is a Roman foot soldier. This is the legionnaire. They had a gallia, which was their helmet. And like I said earlier, you could tell the difference between which soldiers by their helmet. They also held their pilum, which is right here, the long javelin. The whole outfit and these parts on the shoulders was known as the lorica segmentata, excuse me. The belatus was the belt that's around the waist. However, they're showing that the belt also goes above your chest, around your chest, and on your shoulders. Then you have the cingulum. The cingulum is this part right here that is connected to the belt. It is the metal fittings that hang off the belt. This was important. This was to protect the groin during any kind of battle. And next is the gladius, which is the sword on this side. Now, on the other side of the shield, you're not able to see it, is where they would carry the pugio. Underneath all of the armor, they would need something to wear, which was this right here, this red outfit right here. This was a tunic. It was generally made of wool. The shield was this right here. This is what they used to defend themselves. Also, throughout different periods of Rome, the shield's pictures on them also would change. And also, they had to have some footwear, which they had were sandals, and the sandals were allowed them to move freely because they were flexible. In conclusion, the Roman army, known as the Roman legion, defended Rome against outside defenses as well as inside. They had many different battle formations, more than I had mentioned before. Their weapons throughout the years upgraded, but they still used the small swords like the gladius and the pugio. They still use the shield and the body armor. Thank you for listening. I would also like to thank my cameraman. He is my son. He did an amazing job helping me to record. Thank you.
Yep.